After going through all the algebraic method in solving quadratic equation, we come to graphical method. Well, did you listen to the word called algebraic method? Very big word, right? But you have to note this word very carefully because we will be using it a lot in your study. Algebraic method, you can say simply like math method. So you solve it by some algebra, moving terms, taking square roots, factorization, etc. So you're just merely operating on the equation directly. But now in this part, we'll be talking about graphical method. We are not solving the equation directly, but we use graph to do so. So let's take a look on the question. And now your focus or your question is you're going to solve x squared minus x minus 3 equals 0. If you're allowed to use algebraic method or even calculator, it's just very easy. You can check for your calculator that the question by formula 1 is, okay, let's check together. Can you get the answer like 2.30 or minus 1.30? So this is by calculator. And then, but in graphical method, then what can we do? It will be doing in this way. Okay, so in solving equation is like talking about you want to find the intersection of two graphs. Repeat. In solving a single linear equation, it's talking about solving finding the point of intersection in two graphs. So how we can break it down? Normally it can be separated in left and right, so which is left hand side, right hand side. So each of them will be talking about two graphs. One is called y is x squared minus x minus 3, and the other one is y equals 0. So if you can draw these two graphs and find the point of intersection, so they are where the answer lies. So now let's take a look. Generally speaking, the first graph, the hardest one, will be provided in the diagram. For example, now I provide you the graph of y is x squared minus x minus 3. And your job is you need to identify the second one to be drawn, which is y equals 0, and you did draw it. And then y equals 0, in the previous chapter, you know that is the horizontal line passing through 0. So, or you can say level 0 in the question. After you draw it, this is y equals 0. Then you can read points of intersection here. Okay, not very clear to you. Maybe I change to another color, like, okay, let's say yellow. Okay, 1 point, 2 points. And then these two dots, the value of x tells you the answer, which are, for example, this one is minus 1.3, and this one is 2.3. So that's why in this case, so you can say or present the answer in this way. I find a space to do so first, which is, okay, I write as saying that draw y equals 0 and then x equal to minus 1.3 or 2.3, and that is. In the marking scheme, normally we give you 1 mark for what line to be drawn and 1 answer mark for the answer to be obtained from the diagram. And now you can compare the answers. In algebraic method, because you are allowed to use calculator, the answer is more precise. It will be 3-sig fig or even more significant figures as you like. But in graphical method, then the answer will be short according to the grid lines. For example, now the grid will be giving you each value is 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, etc. So that's why the answer will be only up to 1 sig fig. But it doesn't matter. The main point will be you just draw a line and you read the answer 1, 2, and you obtain the result finally. The next question will be in what situation you need to solve the question by graphical method. Not very hard, there should be some keywords, right? So for example, like graphically. Okay, sometimes we'll be using wordings like by using graph, the graph provided. So of course there should be a graph provided to you as well. So keywords graphically by using a graph as well a graph is attached to you, given to you, then you note that you have to find the answer by the graph. Okay, second way would be how you present the answer. Okay, so you bear in mind that in the equation, there are two separate parts. One is left-hand side, one is right-hand side. So each of them refers to a graph to be noticed. So first one on the left is y is x squared minus x minus 2, which is provided in the diagram already. Next one will be y equals 0. So that's why your answer should be presented as you draw. Okay, let's wait. I need more space. Draw y equals 0, and you really draw it. Okay, but I don't have a ruler now, so I just sketch it very roughly. And then you read the answer, number 1 and number 2. And then you say x is minus 1 or 2. That's all. Not very hard to you, right? So let's read more examples or do more exercise to get familiarized with this particular method called graphical method. Okay, so now you have come across the algebra methods and also graphical methods about solving quadratic equation. Do you like graphical method? Honestly, I heard from many students saying that they don't like it because if I use calculator, quadratic formula, or like even factorization, I can solve it. Why do we need to use graph, isn't it? It's very terrible to draw the parabola at the line, or the concept is more harder. It's harder. So that's why these are all these disadvantages of solving quadratic equation by graphical method, because you've got so much trouble, especially talking about graphs. But you remember that now you're in your study, you are only limited to quadratic equation. But the world is very complicated, and we may be having cubic equation, like the next one, power 4, power 5, or whatever powers, many different powers, very strange curve, etc. Now, how can you solve it by the method called algebraic method? For example, like this one. Though you will be learning it very soon, a few chapters afterward, you don't know how to do it at this moment because how can you factorize it in 2 brackets or 3 brackets? How? How can you factorize it? Or I give you a calculator. Can you use a calculator to solve it now? If you haven't learned anything about cubic equation, so you dare not have any method to do so. So, but if I give you the diagram, for example, well, this graph I give you y is 3x cubed plus 2x squared plus x plus 1. The graph of it, for example, is given. Then do you know what to draw? Draw the line in order to solve it? Yes, you look at the right and you say draw y equals 0, and you redraw the line, solve the equation, and not solve the equation, read the points of intersection, then you get the answer, isn't it? So that's why graphical method plays a very, very important role to many different kinds or different or difficult kinds of question in solving equation. Because whatever kinds of equation you have, when you are capable to draw the graph, of course we are talking about using computer or some software apps to draw it. When you can draw the graph, then you can solve it quite easily. So now we go back to line number 2, and now we move to the next page. Number 3 tells you the truth, because can you see that this diagram is I use a computer software to draw it, which is the equation that we want to solve it a minute ago. And then right now you remember the trick or the way to do will be I draw y equals 0. Again, I sketch it, a very ugly diagram. Sorry. Okay, draw in this way. Okay, next, you read the points of the intersection. There's only 1 point here. Oh, but I cover, okay, only 1 point here. Okay, then you just say x is minus 0.8. That's all. So graphical method is that simple because once the graph is provided to you, you can find the points of intersection and get the answer. But if you want to solve it by yourselves, then you need to go to the chapter called polynomial in order to learn the way to solve it. And finally, then there are some open-end questions for you as well. So it also helps you to understand the chapter onward because it's about intersection as well. In number 5, one is asking you like, when you have no solution or one solution, what do you think about the graph look like? So what does that mean? It will be that you will see that the left-hand side of the equation will be the graph provided to you. While on the right, you're talking about y equals 0. That means in order to solve these 2 equations, you're talking about you are checking for the intersection of y is a squared plus bx plus c, and also y equals 0. And then what if you have no solution? What does that mean in graphical sense? Yes, that's good. That means these two lines, they have no points of intersection. So first situation may be it's a happy graph and x-axis, which is y equals 0, they are separated. Or the second case would be, it may be like this, because you may have unhappy graph. This is a situation of number 1. Depends on A is positive or negative, and you have two different diagrams over there. Now can you figure out what's the situation or what's the graph look like when you have only one solution? One solution. Yes, pretty good. That means the graph will be touching y equals 0, that means touching the x-axis at one point. Or unhappy graph, the same case, 1 point only. So that's why if you can interchange between solving equation and about graphical method, then you have a much more clear sense about roots, about solution, etc. Finally, there's a challenging question for you. So you're asking for, if you think of the parabola, can you explain why the equation has, can the equation have more than two solutions? Can you? You draw a parabola, and maybe I assume that is a happy graph. When you have more than two solutions, that means you have more than 2 points of intersection. Is it possible? Y equals 0 may be here, y equals 0 may be here, y equals 0 may be here, y equals 0 may be here. But wherever you draw, it may be no solution for the first line, one solution for the second line, and then if you keep on moving up the y equals 0, then you find that there are at most 2 roots. Can you see it? So that's why it's impossible for a quadratic equation to have more than 3 roots. So this is the last example by using a graphical sense to say that quadratic equation has at most 2 roots or 2 solutions only.